Well, we'll go ahead and get rolling for today. Thanks everybody for joining in. This is kind of our first ever attempt at a kind of a leadership town hall. And one of the reasons we wanted to do this year is because we have chapter elections coming up. And so we are currently recruiting social workers for many different positions across our chapter. And we have always had a difficult time of explaining what each of those positions do, but also giving opportunities for you all to talk about leadership in social work. What sort of trajectory have you seen throughout your own personal career? And we're going to talk a little bit about a few different levels of social work leadership, both within NASW and outside of NASW. So kind of how today's structure is going to go. This will be not much formal structure. We want to have this be a lot of dialogue, but we'll talk about some of the specific positions that are going to be opening through NASW. And I'm hoping that's why some of you are on today's call, that you'll be interested in running for either a board position or a delegate position. We'll talk about some other chapter leadership. We have one of our Michigan members who's running for the national NASW board of directors, Guadalupe Lara, and we're so happy she has joined us today. Algeria will talk a little bit about how some other ways social workers can get into the leadership positions across the state, whether that's in appointed positions, as she just mentioned, she got appointed herself into one. And then we'll open it up for kind of a community conversation. Today is day one of Social Work Month. So first and foremost, I just want to say happy Social Work Month, everybody. Social workers are essential, and I feel like that theme could not be more appropriate in our current situation. We know you all have been working hard the last year. This has been a challenging year for everybody, and I know social workers have really stepped up to the plate. And as your association, we have seen the leadership that social workers have shown at every level of practice, and it's been reflected in policies, as well as we've gotten much more positive media attention in the last year than we probably have in a long time. So I think even the public perception of social work has shifted a little bit, which is always wonderful. So I also wanted to just share kind of some Social Work Month resources. I'll put those in the chat box as well. Please feel free to share anything that maybe your organizations are doing to celebrate social workers this month. It's a great way to, as we talk about leadership, how are we honoring each other? How do we honor our colleagues and our coworkers? And this is a great time to do it this month. NASW has a few different resources that are available for social workers, whether you want to do stuff internally, or if you're interested in maybe writing a press release or an op-ed in your local paper. There's some resources in the social work, socialworkmonth.org document. In terms of continuing ed, you all won't need to do anything today. So you've logged on, so you're good. We'll make sure that those get emailed out within 30 days. And then lastly, I'm just going to put in the chat box the link to all of the leadership positions that are currently open at the chapter level and that will be on this year's election. We have a pretty good slate of positions, including president-elect, first vice president, our region 6, 7, 10, and 11, both of our student positions, a member at large position, and we have 9 positions that are going to be open at the delegate assembly level. And we're going to kind of talk about some of what all of those positions do throughout the next hour. But if you have questions, please feel free to start typing those into the chat box or hold off until we get somewhere to those particular topic areas. So as we kind of get into the social work leadership in terms of our structure of our organization, NASW, how our own chapter works is we have our board of directors here in Michigan. It's a 19-person board of directors that include several executive positions, 11 regional positions, which are specific parts of the social work population in Michigan, geographic based, 2 student roles, and 2 member at large positions. Those are elected positions. Most of them are 3-year terms. Our student and our member at large positions are 1-year terms. And then they kind of guide our association here in the state. Our national organization runs similarly with the board of directors, and then the staff kind of function underneath them. And so as we kind of get into some of our own chapter leadership, I wanted to introduce, we've got our current board president, Barb Hitz is on the line. And maybe Barb, if you want to say a couple words, and I know we've got the president-elect position coming up, so any tools and tips from your time as board president?
Yeah, welcome everyone. Happy Social Work Month. I'm Barb Hitz. I use she, her pronouns, and I've had just the great honor and privilege of serving on NASW's board for the last couple of years. I'm halfway through a 3-year term, and so we are looking for a president-elect who would start this summer. The way that the position works is you would serve as president-elect for 1 year. And with me, right, I'd still be president for a year, and we'd have a president-elect come in for 1 year, and then you'd serve on your own for 1 year, and then you'd have a new president-elect come in for the 3rd year of your term. So we try to, it works really well in terms of transition. I felt really grateful to have a year serving alongside of the person who was the president before me. I'll tell you what made me want to join this board is I served in the community. I had lots of different social work jobs, but most recently as an executive director, and I moved to the University of Michigan in 2015. And academia can be a bit of a bubble. And so for me, it was a good way to keep my fingers in what is happening with social work more broadly, and especially around the state. That's been one of my favorite things. I've learned more about social work within the state of Michigan in my last year and a half on this board than I think I did in the 10 years I had lived in Michigan before that. So the board president runs the board meetings and runs the executive committee meetings. And then I meet weekly with Max, the executive director, just to keep connected with what's going on. And, we sort of consult about what's happening, and she uses me, I think, as a bit of a sounding board. Sometimes certainly I use her that same way. So those are some of the main functions. I think people have asked me about the role. Their most common question is, how much time does it take? So I don't know if anyone's thinking about running for president-elect. I was trying to think of how much time I spend, and I think 4 hours or less in a week is probably what I would say it ends up taking, even on heavy weeks where we have board meetings. Happy to talk to anybody who's interested in serving. You can send me a private note in the chat, and or maybe I'll post my email in the chat, and then you can shoot me a message if you're interested in talking more about that.
Thanks, Barb. And now we will also have our current Vice President of Social Policy, which is also going to be the first Vice President. So sometimes our names change of our positions. Edward D'Angelo. Edward.
Well, thank you, and good evening, everybody. So let me just say first, it's been an honor. This is my 3rd year of my term. And I want to start out by just saying one of the benefits of serving is I've met some really, really amazing people with a diversity of talents and perspectives. And that's saying something, because I joined the board after 4 decades in social work, and I'm still learning a lot, which is great, because if you're not learning, you're dying. So I'm living well and growing, and serving on the board has been part of that. So in addition to service, there's what you sort of get from it. The first vice president steps in per the chapter charter in the event that the president's unable to fulfill their duties. Secondly, and perhaps most significantly, their primary role is to chair the Legislative and Social Policy Committee, which is made up of members that are dedicated to that purpose. And also, in accordance with our chapter charter, oversees the chapter diversity plan. We're fortunate to have a very active and committed and dedicated racial justice committee. So that ensures that that process goes forward. The first vice president serves on the executive committee, which is made up of the officers, and also attends the full board meetings, and the way Barb's handled things over the past couple of years has been those are alternating months. So basically, it's a meeting once a month in the evening for one or the other of those. And then the Legislative and Social Policy which is chaired by the VP, meets once a month. For those of you who haven't been to one of those meetings, they're very informative. Between Algeria and our lobbyist, Noah Smith, you get a real sense of activity and what's going on. And I do feel good that actually a fair amount has been accomplished in this past couple of years. And Algeria will talk about, I think, some of that, but I'm proud that we have more social workers serving on commissions, and we're pushing that. And I see the impact that our efforts are having on legislation and issues that are important to social workers in Michigan. And then I just wanted to end up maybe where I should have started off, but advocacy is really crucial to social work. It's in our code of ethics if you read them through, and it's really incumbent on all of us to do what we can, and it's also crucial for those and for those of us that are sort of students of government. A lot of the decisions that impact the work that we do, decisions are being made at the state legislature level or the state department level, even if the funds for it are coming from the federal level. So it's really crucial that we have an effective and an active method of communicating with policymakers in Michigan, because that impacts social workers in Michigan. So I do, if you're interested, I do encourage you to step forward, check it out. As was mentioned by Barb, I'll put my email there if you want to contact me directly. But now's as important a time as any to step forward and help your fellow citizens in the state of Michigan.
Thank you, Edward. And I think it's really important, saying social workers have a seat at the table, because I think in many times we don't, or we haven't been at the table, whether it's by invitation or exclusion, right? And I think one of the things that NASW-Michigan is committed to doing is making sure that social workers are at as many tables as possible, because that may involve our funding, our programming, our policy making decisions, and it's really critical that we have our voices heard at those decisions. And at the chapter level, obviously our board is one level within the field that we can make some of those changes happen. And I think we have 3 of our current region reps on call. We have our region 9, 8, and 11 reps, I believe. So maybe we'll start in alphabetical order. So Sarah, our region 11 rep, do you want to say a couple things?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Bizitlo, and I am the Region 11 representative for Wayne County. This is my 3rd year in my position, which means that mine is up for election. So we will be having somebody step into this role starting in July. So if you live or work in Wayne County and you are interested, please feel free to reach out to me. Like Ed had said, and Barb too, this experience of being on the board has been wonderful. When I came into NASW as a student, I don't think I took full advantage of all that my membership had to offer. It wasn't until kind of later, after being in the profession for a little bit, I was moving from West Michigan to Detroit for work, and being in Detroit, I felt kind of lonely. I didn't know where my social workers were. I needed to find those people and wanted to find those people. And that kind of encouraged me to kind of run for the region rep position. I think this is a great way not only to meet other social workers, but to become more involved in NASW-Michigan, to be more involved in social work as a profession, to be able to advocate for social workers. This has just been an amazing opportunity. I think one of the cool things with the region position specifically is that we get to serve as a liaison between our region and NASW-Michigan. We help to kind of bridge that gap a little bit. I know one thing that has been helpful within my region is if there are needs or concerns of social workers in Wayne County, I'm able to kind of bring that to the board. If there are things that social workers are really looking for as far as continuing education or networking opportunities, the region reps have the ability to make those things happen fairly easily. Just within Region 11, we've been able to start something that we're calling Touch Base Tuesday, which is really just a networking hour once a month for social workers in the region. We've been able to provide continuing education on topics that social workers are interested in and asking for. So I've really enjoyed being in this position. Just like with our membership, it is what you make it. You can be as actively involved. While there are some expectations of the region reps, you really can make it your own. And it has been a wonderful experience. So I'll make sure that I put my email address in the chat in case anybody from Region 11 is interested in this position. I would love to talk to you more about that.
Be sad to have you go, Sarah. Somehow these 3 years go by really quick.
They do. They do.
In a pandemic year, sometimes they go by even quicker or slower, depending on how the year is. The next person I have is our Region 9 rep, Jennifer Klauth.
Hey, that's me. So I'm Jennifer Klauth. I'm new, a new region rep. So this has been my first year. So if you have questions about that starting out, I'm happy to answer those. And started during the pandemic. So I think having a little bit different experience, but it's still been really great. I'm learning a lot, and I do feel a little bit more connected. And mostly I'm really enjoying, I guess, a greater sense of agency that I probably had before, but because I have joined voices with other fellow social workers, just really feeling like that, that advocacy, that I'm not alone in that, and that it's making a difference. And so that really helps, especially in this time of being disconnected from a lot of things. So I've enjoyed that so far. So far, so good. As far as it goes, I got a couple more years to go before you can snag my spot. So start prepping now. But that doesn't mean if you are in my region, I'd love to connect. I think we're still really building our social networks. And since we haven't had any in-person events, it's hard to get to know all of you. So if any of you are in my region, I'd love to connect because I'd love to pull in more folks into event planning and resources and ways we can connect. So yeah, just grateful to be a part, and grateful for all of you.
Thanks, Jennifer. And where do you work?
Sorry, yeah, I work at Western Michigan University, the manager of recruitment and outreach. So I'm on staff there. I do like admissions and student services stuff. So this is a nice way for me to connect students and faculty with this as well. And we have another faculty member who is a Region 4. Did I get that right? Okay. Region 4 rep also works at Western as a faculty member. So that's nice too, that we've been able to share some of those resources as well. So yeah, we enjoy being that connect for our students.
I think it's important to point out that board reps can serve for 2 3-year terms. So just because you're completing your first 3-year term, it doesn't mean that you can't run for a second.
Duly noted, Max. Duly noted.
I wanted to say that for your benefit and for Sarah's benefit. You can also run for a position on the executive committee. So just saying.
Thanks, Max. And our other regional rep who's on is Region 8 rep, which is Oakland and Macomb County, Miriam Halprin.
Hi, everyone. I'm the Region 8 representative, like Dwayne said. which covers Oakland and Macomb counties. I've been in the position for, I think, about a year and a half. I think I started the same time as Barb. Up until COVID, we were doing a lot of fun and interesting things. We were doing a lot of training and a lot of continuing education and connecting activities. Some of it was Region 8 members initiating things like I believe we still have an ongoing yoga class. We have a few members who have put events together with regard to grief and loss. Right now we're working on, I'm working with Sanctum House on a human trafficking possibility. And I'm also working with Region 8 and 11 and 10, I believe, we're working together on something with self-care we've been talking about, as well as politics, but that's sort of still in the, in the very vague stages. But a lot of coordination and a lot of reaching out to help members. I've been able to help a few of our members when they've contacted NASW for some support with regard to employment or just with getting through a situation. It's been very exciting, and I'm looking forward to doing it for another year and a half. So not looking for anyone to take over immediately, but I can put down my email address in the chat for anyone in Region 8 who's interested in talking more with me about any of these things or about anything else about NASW. Thank you.
Thanks, Miriam. One of the interesting things about our board, right, is our regions are so geographically and social work diverse. If you've got a region like Region 11, which is just one county, where there's about 1,000 NASW members just in the one county, versus Region 3, which is our other region rep, which I knew you were on here, Phyllis, because I talked to you first. Our Region 3 rep, which is in the northeast part of the state, which we have about 75 members in the entire county, or in the entire region of the state. It's a very different ball of wax in organizing. And so that's why it's so critical that we have social workers kind of in each of those areas of the state that can kind of relay what's going on in that part of Michigan, what's going on in that world of social work, and what are the needs. So Phyllis, let me turn it over to you to do a quick introduction of yourself.
Hi, everyone. Happy Social Work Month. Yes, I am up in Alpena, Michigan. It is really windy and cold up here today. Yikes. I think it is everywhere across the state, but we reached March. So that's awesome. And yeah, I'm about an hour south of the bridge. It's absolutely beautiful up here. But it is, Region 3 is like 11 counties and 75 people. So it's challenging. I'm super excited to be in this position. I have been in this position not even a year. I'm new as well. So trying to figure out, I'm gonna start doing some cold calling out to all my folks. I figure, well, this is Social Work Month. It's a great time to reach out and call them on the phone and say, hey, what's going on? So yeah, just trying to figure it all out. But I've met some really great people, and this is an awesome opportunity. And it's exciting to reconnect with NASW and reconnect with social workers all over the state. I think we get out of our schooling and then we kind of get into all other facets of life and can kind of lose touch of, we're just on the grind, on the wheel, and just working. And being a part of NASW gives you that opportunity to reconnect with your authentic self. I think the young person way back when that said, oh, I'm going to save the world and do some great things. And it's allowed me to kind of connect with that and find myself again as a middle-aged woman. So it's a great opportunity. I would encourage anyone who wants to step it up a little bit. This is a great organization to be a part of. Wonderful team.
Phyllis, I'm curious for folks online, does anybody have any questions for any of kind of either the executive positions or the regional positions? I know some of the folks who are on are interested in running. So if you've got questions, we can open up some time now before we move on to kind of some of more of the national level topics. All right, Florence, it looks like you're trying to talk. Let me see if I can unmute you. Can't hear you yet. Oh, looks like you should be able to talk now.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha.
Don't want to what happened the last time to repeat itself. My name is Florence, and I'm a social worker, and happy Social Work Month to everybody. I'm interested, but I don't know what position I would like to consider, but I am definitely interested in just, trying it out. It's something I've never done. It's kind of scary, but I'm listening and I'm kind of like, maybe I could try and see. So I think I'm going to be trying to find out what I would like to find out, what I wanted to find out most of all, which even the president said before, just how much time, these positions involve. How much time of your day or month or however it takes to do these things, the responsibilities. I haven't read into a whole lot of it, but I would like to know how much time it takes, maybe how many hours a week it takes for, let's say, for let's say for Sarah's position, I like to know how that works, or even for just a representative position. Those are the ones that I will be looking at. I'm just kind of curious to see how much time is involved if I'm working.
Great. Does any of the current board want to give your experience and time as maybe a regional rep?
Sorry, my internet was getting a little choppy. Dwayne, did you just call on me?
Well, now that your line's open, sure.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you were asking me. I know that Florence mentioned something about my position specifically, and I know she and I are going to be talking later. So, but I don't want to take the floor away from anyone. My internet just got super choppy.
Sarah, I think you can do it. She wanted just some sense from region reps about how much time in a week or a month you spend.
Sure. So kind of like what I had mentioned in my little intro, it is what you make it. So there are some region reps who are involved in numerous things and projects. Others kind of scale it back a little bit depending on what they're able to do and the time that they're able to contribute. Outside of monthly board meetings, we are obviously encouraged to continue connecting with members, whether that be on Facebook. Each region has a Facebook page. And then also we rotate membership emails and who is responsible for drafting those and sending those out to our regions. For me, my hope in Region 11, because we have so many social workers, my personal goal was to try to have some sort of outreach event or activity every month. Sometimes that happened, other times it didn't. But I would say generally, I probably contribute, depending on the month, 2 to 5 hours in a month, perhaps. Give or take, it's kind of hard to say. Outside of our board meetings, I started the Touch Base Tuesdays, which is, an hour commitment. So I would say between probably 2 to 5 hours each month might be a general sense, but some people are busier than me and others are less. So it really depends on what you make it. If you're somebody who really wants to hit the ground running and have a lot going on and you have the time to contribute, you could absolutely do more than that.
Thank you, Sarah. We have a question from Adam.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me. I just had a question about, I think I have a two-part question. One, I want to know, does these positions provide any advocacy to improving working conditions? I definitely think definitely our working conditions impact the patient outcomes. And I'm wondering if I haven't heard anything mentioned about that and if that's a topic that these positions work on. And then I'm also wondering, the second part is kind of if there's a higher board than this above us, if there's, and that the heart of that question is what power, if any, do these positions have in terms of, improving working conditions and thus patient care? Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Edward, would you like to answer that?
Oh, sure. So first of all, the NASW some years ago, but recently, sort of changed its structure. So in point of fact, we are the national organization's board is sort of the, shall we call it, the parent organization, and we are a chartered chapter of that national organization. So the board, each of these positions fulfills a role. They're specific to Michigan, but there is the national leadership that we're working in coordination with. Let's say that, and I would offer the opinion that we're actually working quite well with them, with our staff and our leadership. With respect to workplace conditions, and I'm a CEO at my own organization, that it depends, it sort of depends what we may be talking about. There's federal regulations, there may be state regulations, there's employer practices. It sort of depends what the specifics are of that situation, sort of what the approach to that might be. But NASW Michigan does advocate for social workers in Michigan, and depending on what the situation that you're making reference to, Adam, there may be, there may or may not be an appropriate role for NASW Michigan to get involved in from an advocacy standpoint. It's difficult for me to say too much more without, knowing more specifics. But if you'd like to contact me to get into this a little bit more, please feel free.
Can I add to what you're saying, Edward? Because in my 20 years here, we've done several things. We were contacted by a group of social workers at a hospital in Detroit who had some concerns about employment, about hours worked, about confidentiality, and we were able at that point to meet with them, with their union rep, and to help them sort of outline an approach based on social work ethics. And I think where there are ethical violations in the workplace, NASW, certainly we have a very strong chapter ethics committee. And our ethics committee has done everything from advocating for someone who's in a work environment where there are ethical violations, to writing letters. We cannot take a legal perspective, but we can take an ethical perspective. And because of social work roots going back to union positions, we are not a union, but we're good listeners and we're good community organizers, and we can be helpful in that way as well. So Adam, I don't know if that helps answer your question, but in all of those meetings, the regional reps were a key part of it.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add is about our Legislative and Social Policy Committee. I don't know if I missed that being mentioned, but a huge piece of that committee is around advocacy, not only helping drive our legislative and social policy priorities, but also ensuring that there's enough funding and support for social workers across Michigan who are working and who are in various different roles in organizations. So there's room to make it what you like to make it. So hopefully that answers your question.
It's a great question, Adam, and I appreciate you asking. But social work workforce issues are things that come up all the time. As can NASW or does NASW advocate, whether it's salary increases, student loan debt, caseloads, right? Our board really helps bring back those conversations to the chapter level. And one of the things our chapter board also does is creates a strategic plan for what our priorities are as a chapter and what we are working on over a couple of year period. And so that's another avenue that potentially board members can take, but kind of like everybody said, there's all these different levels, right? There's LFP, there's an ethics committee, I put in the comments, our national board of directors, there's various groups nationally that folks can get involved with as well. And so figuring out, it sounds like what you're getting at is like, where's the right place if I wanted to work on this particular thing specifically? And we don't have, there's not a workforce work group or committee right now, but like in theory, that could be a thing that happens in the future. But I really appreciate you bringing up that topic area. And I think that does transition pretty well into talking about, where do we fit in terms of social work policy, whether it's talking about workplace issues or other things that are important to the social work profession. And one of the bodies within NASW that looks at policy issues at a national level is called our Delegate Assembly. And if you're not familiar with kind of that entity, I view it as like the electoral college of NASW. Each chapter gets a certain amount of voting members based off of their size. Michigan gets 9 currently. And those folks are 3-year terms generally. And every summer they vote on some policy priorities that are coming up at the national level. And those go into a book called Social Work Speaks, and that's NASW's policy stances on hundreds of policy issues. And our delegates review those, they make comments, suggestions, and then also have the opportunity when things like the Code of Ethics or some of our other standards come up for revision to provide comment and ultimately vote on those important policies that impact everyone across the country. And so this summer, our delegates voted on a couple of things specifically as it related to the Code of Ethics, including self-care language, and had a lot of conversations around cultural humility versus competence versus awareness, kind of that language situation. So I know Max also was going to I don't know if I said everything about Delegate Assembly that you wanted to chat about, but if you've got other thoughts about Delegate Assembly, and then I see a couple of hands. Oh, you're muted.
I'll try to be quick. I think it's important that everybody understand and take a look at the book that's published called Social Work Speaks. I know that not many social workers are aware of its existence, but it contains all of the policy positions that NASW holds. And the purpose of Delegate Assembly is that every 3 years, some of those policies are reviewed and changed to make sure that they don't become outdated. And when those are selected, they go to the chapter delegates who are elected. The delegates review them. There's a comment period. Comments are made. And there's like the Midwest Coalition that consists of Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, and Illinois, and Minnesota, and Wisconsin. And ideally, in the old days, we used to get together before Delegate Assembly so that we could have our positions sorted out on various policies. That's not happening so much right now. I'm hoping that it'll come back to life. But the delegates certainly meet within the states. And the delegates also, delegate assembly is also the time when bylaws are changed and when ethics are reviewed, code of ethics is reviewed. Michigan did some outstanding work under the direction of Stephen Rassi, who's been a delegate almost as long as I've been executive director. And we were able to get gender identity included within the code of ethics. And we were able to work on the policy about transitioning and gender identity. So we took a lead on those, and it had been something that the delegates had been working on for many, many years, but couldn't move. And then under the guidance of Michigan and some really feisty folks, we were able to push that one forward. In the old days, the delegates used to meet in person. We'd all be flown to Washington, D.C. It was a phenomenal experience. We would meet for 3 days with lots of intense discussions. Since modernization went into effect, the delegations have been virtual. And there's certainly room to beef those up. And my hope is that this coming 3 years, there'll be energy put into beefing up the discussion of policies and to having our delegation meet more frequently. So that's the role of the delegate. It's kind of a quiet position up until the last year and a half when things really begin to beef up and to move forward. So that, are there questions about delegates? We elect 9 of them.
Yeah, thanks, Max. There looks like there's a question from Michael.
Okay, I don't have my glasses, so if you could read it.
Hello,
Sure, go ahead,
Dwayne.
Michael.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me. My question is, I haven't. This is the first time I've really gotten interested in the way in the voting. Can you talk a little bit how the process works, how people are nominated, or if a name is submitted, how the process works for the election, and how it ends up someone being selected? Thank you.
Are you referring to in general or with the delegates?
So any one of the positions that we have available now. So if I was to run for representative or even one of the executive positions, how would that work? I mean, I would submit my name, of course, but can you just talk about the overall way the election goes?
Yeah, that's great. That's an important question, right? The process for everything. So nominations are open until March 24th for the positions here in Michigan, the board and the delegate positions. After that happens, a slate of candidates. So any name that has been successfully submitted, assuming you complete your nomination form, will be sent out to members. And then there will be an election period, which will run for about a month from mid-April, right before the conference, until mid-May, where any NASW member who's an active member can vote during that election period. And then anybody who wins their election takes office July 1st. And so depending on your particular role, it will either be a 3-year position or a 1-year position. So that's the easy breakdown of how the elections work here in the state. And then the national office, I think I did put the link for the National Board of Directors, but they have their own elections. Theirs will be open shortly as well. And it's a similar process if you want to run for a national position too. They'll have a slate of candidates and all of that. But that's actually a good maybe transition point even to talk to our national folk who's on the call today, Lupe. And I know you have had several positions within the national and the state board. And maybe you could talk a little bit about what you're running for and that experience.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay. Hello, everybody, and happy Social Work Month. I'm really proud to be a social worker, and I love the theme this year that social workers are essential. I see many of my colleagues really stepping up for this COVID, working the whole time, front and center. I know that I'm retired, but not really, not ever, because I'm always doing something, and I was called to step in during this COVID in Southwest Detroit, and I, with my team, have organized vaccinations for people who find it difficult to get transportation to go downtown. This Saturday, we'll have our second vaccination, this time for, again, 60 and over, but essential workers like restaurant workers, bakery workers. And we just started Friday registering, and already we have 100 people registered and many more calling me and texting me while I'm in this meeting. But I joined NASW a long time ago in 1976. I was a student, and like some of you that asked, well, what would I do? You know, and I just am graduating. I'm glad that some of my professors pushed me to do it. It was a challenge because I didn't have a car, and then I bought a little old car, had to drive to Lansing, but it was worth it. And you are advocating. Somebody asked about that. I remember just out of grad school, Governor Milliken was the governor. I was appointed to the state mental health board. And out of that, we were able to get grants to Detroit to fund, for the first time, a mental health center to provide quality services to the Arabic and Spanish speaking people and Native people in that area. And that was so big, I just can't tell you. And that was it. I was so about advocating, but with this goal of an outcome, not just to advocate, but to actually have hands-on to people. It was very inspiring to me. So then Max, I was on the board with Max. It seems like we've been around forever. And Max got me to be on the board, and I did it. I was the director of Children's Hospital's Child Abuse and Social Work at that time. It was a very busy time, but I'm glad I did it. And then I became president of NASW-Michigan. I remember then we had about 8,000 social workers. And then I was again recommended by Michigan to run for national representative from our region. And I served 3 terms. And then again, I was then asked by the committee that selects people to run to be national representative. So I got elected for another 3 years. And then now I've been selected and asked, would I run for vice president? And it was a hard decision, but there's a lot of things to advocate for. And NASW National has a very large lobby with, both houses. And it is very effective. And I thought I have to do it. Now, I don't know if I'll get elected, but I'm proud to run. And yes, it is very important to be connected. And I'll tell you, from my time at National, Michigan stands out in terms of advocacy, in terms of their lead event where students, MSW students come from, and BSW students come from the state. I think that Max, the team, and also the boards have been exceptional in keeping social work and the importance of social work front and center. So I encourage all of you. I know we are all doing so much, but really, you talk about self-care. I have found being on the NASW Michigan board or a regional lead or whatever position, or a volunteer on committees, has actually been self-care for me, because it made me feel like, oh, there are other people out there. I'm not going to say it's like therapy, but it was very validating to be with other people who also cared about what people were going through. And that really, we are honored to be the voice for those people that we serve that haven't yet learned how to make their voice be heard. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Lupe. Always brings such a wealth of experience and knowledge to the chapter, and I love hearing it. I've seen that in the comments too. So if folks have questions, feel free to type those into the chat box or raise your hand and we can get those answered. But I will also like to introduce, we've got kind of one other chapter level person that is chair of our ethics committee. Mary, are you still on?
Yep, I'm here. Hello, everybody.
Hi there.
I would say, I'm trying to get my video button going, pardon me. I wasn't really prepared, but let me, I've been working with the ethics committee for about 5 years now, and it's some of the best work that I've ever done as a social worker. If anybody is interested, I will also put my email address in there because we're just about always looking for a member. We try to run about 12 members strong. I think we have 11 or 12 currently, but people come and go as they need to, and it's great work. We do provide a lot of free consultations and trainings around the state, and really the focus of our committee is education and support of social workers. So it's direct service to the social work community, and it's always very well received by folks. If you feel like you need some thank yous in your professional life, it's a great way to get some thank yous, to be honest. And it's a nice way to build your network of social workers.
Thanks, Mary. And our ethics committee, if folks are interested in that, it's not an elected position. It's kind of internal appointed. So if you're interested in that, usually what you just need to do is send a resume and an interest letter over to me or to the chair of the ethics committee, and we can move those forward. But like Max said earlier, our ethics committee is really critical in answering ethical dilemmas that may come up for various areas of practice, handling professional review if it gets to that part, as well as helping to design and develop training as it relates to social work ethics. And as we're now in this new tech age of social work, right, we know that there's going to be continued new ethical challenges and dilemmas that pop up in that area. So we appreciate all the work that you're doing, Mary. And actually, currently, the national ethics chair, so the national NASW also has an ethics committee, is a former Michigan ethics committee chair, Monica Rich McLaurin, and she'll be hosting a webinar for us next Tuesday from 12 to 1 for free. So if you're interested in hearing about what's going on in kind of national ethics, that's a good opportunity to hear directly from the source. But the last person I wanted to kind of swing back to is Algeria, and she was going to talk about just some other ways social workers can get into leadership positions across the state. And then we'll just open it up for the remaining time for any other questions that folks might have.
Yeah, I would also say, you know, at the chapter, we have MPACE as well, which is our Michigan Political Action Committee that is responsible for endorsing social work candidates who are running for office. And so we're always looking for individuals to join that committee. Again, that is a board appointed committee, but there's a lot of influence in the policy realm and advocacy realm with MPACE. So if you're interested in that, please reach out. But as it relates to state level appointments, I'll just put a link in the chat for state appointments. But you heard Guadalupe speak to it just a little bit about the power of being on an appointed board at the state level. You are able to see through the link there which appointments are open or what the board, state boards are. And so if you have interest in one, you can click on the link, you can see what their focus is. We receive a quarterly list every quarter on which boards are open, what they're looking for, what the terms are. And we work together as staff with LSP and with our board to make appointments. We draft recommendation letters. We help social workers figure out, you know, what their interest is and how to connect with leaders so that they can be seen as an individual who should be on these boards. A lot of times social workers, as you know, you have extensive amount of experience, but sometimes it can be difficult to rise to those state boards without some of that national networking or state level networking. So that's what we do. We help get social workers in those state roles. So again, if you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out. It is some amazing work. You get a chance to really help set up the right type of programs and supports in various different communities. You can be on our social work board and influence the profession and protect the public. So as those, quarterly reports roll out or quarterly openings roll out, we provide that information to our Legislative and Social Policy Committee first, as well as our board, so we can look for social workers who might be interested in filling those roles. So again, just keep it in mind. It is a great opportunity to serve the state of Michigan.
There are so many places for social workers, right? I mean, NASW, we have our own internal and we want to make sure that there are great people there, but just like we said at the beginning, it's so critical that we have social workers in all of these different areas. And I know that many of you probably have served in various capacities in your cities and in your organizations. So we've got a few minutes left. So I wanted to leave this time to really, are there other questions that folks have about running for any of the positions that are open, or if folks want to share any of their specific leadership opportunities or experiences with the group? And I do see we have our MSW student rep, Denard, on. Denard, we do have both our BSW and our MSW positions that will be open on our board of directors. So if there are any students that are on the call today, we need you too. And we'd love to have, for all of our positions, we'd like to have at least 2 candidates running for every position always. So Denard, I don't know if you have any advice for any students who might be considering running for the board.
Yeah, don't run because I want to try again. All jokes aside, I am not comfortable with silence, so I'm just going to go ahead and speak. I do want to share that, and I might be taking it a little bit too deep, so I hope you all prepared your minds for this. But as you can see visibly, I have a highlighter jacket on, but I'm still a Black man. And so of Haitian descent. And so joining this has been, and you also know at a time where there's a pandemic, but there's also a global pandemic, which is racism too. So it's exacerbated by everything else that's going on. And I heard Adam talk about a question of advocacy. And one thing that I would say, although I feel like you can always do more, like Tim Allen said, the biggest room in the world is the room for improvement. One thing I learned is that you can't do everything on your own. And you need to be at a place where people can hold and share space with you. Like I had a chance to get to know more about Max, Jennifer, Dwayne is a social worker. And so with all that being said, I would say as a student, one of the voices that we see at times that can be overlooked is the student's voice. But one thing I can say, if you do run for this position, that it doesn't discriminate on color, race, creed, or gender, or ethnicity. It gives you an opportunity to be an opportunity and advocate. Now, I wasn't paid for this, but I should be paid for it. It sounds so good. But I would encourage any student to basically put yourself in a position to make sure that no matter what seat or table you're at, that the value proposition of the future is at the table. And that's what they gave me an opportunity to do. But again, my one plea would be for you is don't run, give me another chance. But no, jokingly, everybody please run. And I think this is an opportunity for us not to just change the future, but to change right now. And thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak.
What a way to
can you tell Denard's also a pastor? He's always got us fired up. But I love it. Thanks, Denard.
I guess one thing I'd like to say, and Denard, I really want to get to know you better. So we've got a few months to do that. So But one of the things I want to say is that the board is so critical to the staff. So it's not just that you're working hard in your regions. You're also supporting all of us in the office. There are 6 of us serving about 6,000 members. And we can't do it without the support of the board. And Barb wasn't kidding when she said we meet weekly and it's sort of a sounding board for me. She's been invaluable. And other board members that I connect with have been really supportive of me and Algeria and Dwayne and Trisha and Robin and Sam. So we can't do it. We cannot run NASW-Michigan without an effective board. So for the board members that are on, thank you so much. For those of you who are planning on joining, it'll be great to see you in these positions. So thank you.
Are there other questions folks have before we kind of wrap up for today?
Oh, Dwayne, can I do a shameless plug for our next initiative for the
Sure,
student?
plug away.
All right, awesome. So I know many people are in different positions. You may have students under your supervision or just students in your classroom. One of the big questions we heard that Dwayne we saw recently through the licensure, probably the most attended one I've seen thus far, workshop that was held. There's always a question about what's next, the transition after graduation. And so since we've heard that that's actually one of the concerns, we get an opportunity to actually give people space to have their voices heard and also get some tools in their tool belts, because we know 2 things: that there's a group of people that will have licensure, there's a group of people that will not have licensure, but we also know that everybody, no matter where you go, needs tools to navigate the field. So as a student representative, I would love to see any student and even individuals that have gone into the field recently transitioning to provide some insight, because this is a big concern. And as Dwayne said it, we're all actually experiencing a new type of transition because of the pandemic, a lot of technological issues, and just trying to get through the next hurdle. So I would love every voice. It's March 22nd at 5:30. And if you have any questions, just go to the Facebook group or our NASW-Michigan Chapter Facebook group too. Thank you.
Thanks, Denard. Any other thoughts, questions, comments?
I guess just the only other thing quickly I put in the chat, we are looking for additional legislative social policy committee members. Those are appointed members by our board as well that help influence our policy priorities and our agenda and our advocacy at the Capitol. So please reach out to Edward or myself. Edward has placed his email in the chat, and my information is on our website if you are interested in stepping into that leadership role as well. It's a huge one with the chapter.
I just want to say that it's been a very productive evening for me. When we did the first meeting, 2 weeks ago, the touch base, that was actually my first time being in contact with so many social workers at this level. Even though I've been a member of NSW since 2010, just never took advantage of anything. Just been working and having so many different experiences. I recently got my ACSW, and one of the things that really stood up for me, which I wanted to mention earlier, was the fact that, just that one course I took, I really appreciate the ethics committee, because I've been through some rough times as a social worker, and, people making you do things out of the social work scope. So knowing that we have a body that will be standing, for social workers, to me, it's a great thing. Even though, I went through that, but I usually fight through it. And sometimes I win, sometimes I don't. But I know being a social worker, there's a lot that we can do. And so that's why, even when it comes to those difficult times where people are trying to make me do things outside of the scope of social work, I let them know that I'm not going to do it. And we get into a lot of issues, but it's one of those things that a lot of social workers are going through and nobody knows about it. People don't hear about it, but it's just going on so much, especially in long-term care. And with the COVID situation going on right now, social workers are going through a whole lot, in long-term care. And nobody's talking about it. So I just really appreciate the ethics committee and what I learned, when I was taking courses to get my ACSW. So I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Florence.
Dwayne, I just had a question about the registration for the conference.
Yeah.
Is the little snag on the signing in on the computer okay now? Because I had tried to sign on and it wouldn't let me pay.
We had some weird snags with our website. If for some reason you can't, email me or you can call the office directly and we can call you online. But sometimes it's some weird snag between your national membership and our state chapter and not always aligning properly. And unfortunately, I don't have the way to fix that directly. So we have to go through tech support. But yeah, just call us and we can get it.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, Tara, I saw your hand was up.
Hi, I just have a quick shout out for Guadalupe Lara. I've known her for such a long time and we've been in the profession, it seems like forever. I met her back in 1974 when I got my MSW, and she worked at Children's Hospital, and we were at the state of Michigan in Child Protective Services. That service had just been started then. So it seems like I have known her forever, and it was such a pleasure to see her this evening and to know that she's still an advocate in our profession. She's a definite asset. We appreciate you.
Thank you for your service.
All right, Tara.
Those were applause hands, not a raised hand.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll take applause hands.
Florence. Yeah.
Anyone else have questions or anything they'd like to share? All right, well, we can go ahead and wrap up for tonight. I just want to really hope that you all take some time for yourself this month and kind of honor yourself as we get through Social Work Month. And take some time to honor your colleagues or your favorite social workers that have inspired you. And if you're doing something cool or fun at your organization to support your social workers, let us know too. We'd love to do some shout outs to social workers who are all across the state. So please feel free to reach out at any time. As Max mentioned, we're a staff of 6 and a board of 19 and a chapter of 5,000 plus, right? So it's all of us together making this happen. And I appreciate everyone taking time out of your Monday to start Social Work Month. And hopefully we'll see a lot of your names on the ballot coming out in a couple of weeks. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of your week.
Thank you, Dwayne. Happy Social Work Month.
Social Work
Good night,
Month.
everyone. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.